purpose of this space is to create a very safe environment for people to share a moment of their lives.
Matatagpuan sa 104 and 138 na may higit sa 300 sasakyan, brand new and pre-owned, ay pwede niyong pagpipilian. Bago ka pa sa bansa, wala ka pang credit score, walang problema. Marami kaming selection from all makes and models, and all trade-ins are welcome. Higit pang impormasyon sa sirmitsubishi.com.
Located one block north of St. Paul's Hospital, Downtown Denture Center features complete and partial teeth restoration options. With 35 years experience, Anthony Chung offers mobile services and emergency repair consultation 24 hours a day. Downtown Denture Center, just off Nelson at 970 Burrard in the lobby of the Electra Building. Foodie World has 75,000 square feet of imported and domestic products, with a large selection dedicated to our Filipino kababayans. With an in-house butcher, variety of seafood, and produce from around the globe. Open every day until midnight. Foodie World, one block east of number 3 Road off Sea Island Way in Richmond. Centrally located in the Richmond Auto Mall since 1984, Richmond Honda features a large selection of Honda certified pre-owned vehicles. Inside the showroom, Honda's newest models are displayed for viewing, and the dealership is staffed 7 days a week for financial consultation.
All the stories that you're going to hear tonight are personal in nature, some of which can encroach on dark topics as addiction, abuse, self-harm. And you may get triggered by them. And if you do, there's a beautiful lounge to the back of XY that you can go down, chill out, get your composure. When you're ready, you can come and join us. Welcome to my story. My name is Winston Young, and I'll be your host for tonight. That's my favorite part of the whole show right there. The story goes like this. I was waiting at a restaurant for my date to show up. She was late, substantially late, and a lady walked through the front door and captured my attention. And I was compelled to start a conversation. And from that moment, all these random events had to fall in perfect sequence in order for a moment of connection. And what this person did was she awoke me. And then I got to see a glimpse of a world that I never knew existed. So my trajectory went from this to straight up. This special soul literally awoke my soul. And it eclipsed everything that happened in the previous year in 3 months. And I was like going, this is crazy. It can't keep going like this. Well, I kept going and going and going, and yesterday was 1 year. And so I asked myself when June started, what's going to happen? And I thought, well, I can't sit here and pay attention to everyone I'm speaking to. So, oh, maybe it's this conversation. Maybe it's because I went to this event. Maybe it's because I ate this meal. And then I even said, maybe it's when I craft this blog post about what happened last year that something's going to happen. And I told myself, I can't do that. I'll just go neurotic. And I caught myself wanting to know. I wanted to know what's going to happen. And that was just a form of control. I wanted certainty of that something else is going to happen in my life. And I can't do that. I realized that's the mistake. So I had to let it go. And however it unfolds, it unfolds. So here we are today on the first day of my new cycle. And after working with my team, I'm gonna make the announcement to the universe. In the last 5 years, I've finally sculpted a vision statement. I finally sculpted a way to articulate what I wanted to do, but it didn't have a purpose statement, something to actually go for. So the purpose statement that I'm going to go and share with everyone today, so it has to happen, is I want to have 10,000 people share 10,000 stories at My Story Mondays. Not sure exactly how it's going to happen, but it's going to unfold that way. Whether that happens on the stage or on a page, because some people may not want to share it in person. They might want to write it out. That's fine. But empowering people through storytelling, making them believe that they are worthy, that their voice has power, that their voice has meaning, and then taking that and taking the funds from that, then going back one generation, and then working with the kids and teenagers to hit them at an earlier state before they get brainwashed by society and all this dysfunctional thinking. We can have a shift, we can have a change. And that's where we're going. So with your help, and with the speakers that are coming on tonight, it's the first step on this beautiful cycle that starts today. Thank you very much. So along my journey, I've been blessed by being introduced to very special people. And I define special in a very simple way. I will go have a coffee with them. And if the coffee goes for 2 hours plus, it's a special person. There's a purpose for this person to have entered my life. And it never failed. So if I sit down with you and it ends before 20 minutes, then yeah, we probably won't be speaking much after that. But it's uncanny. The first speaker, I met her. And then I was invited to participate in the work that she does. And I thought to myself, okay, that's cool. And I admit, when I first thought of it, it's like, what can I learn? I got all this knowledge in my head. What could I possibly learn that I don't already know? Then I asked myself, why do I have to be so cynical? So I wiped that clean, reframed it, and said, what could I possibly learn going to this workshop? Well, I collected a bunch of information. I call them dots. We can reframe them as books. So imagine you have a pile of books. Over this 5-year journey, 10-year journey, 15-year journey, I collected a lot of information. And when I say I connect 2 dots, I'll have a conversation with you, and then I go, hey, okay, this makes sense. There's another dot in there somewhere, and I'll go dig for that dot. If I find it within the span of the conversation, I connect 2 dots. Makes sense, right? But if I don't connect the dot, I'll just probably forget about it. So by working with her, what happened was, the most beneficial thing was clarification of vocabulary. What does that mean? Well, if I'm having a conversation with you and we're speaking about apples, and you're speaking about the fruit, and I'm speaking about the computer company, it just doesn't jive, right? So that helped. And then the second thing that happened was she gave me structure. She took all this information, organized it, and now it's not connecting one dot to another dot. I grab one dot and I connect it to multiple dots simultaneously. And that really made things speed up. Like I thought I had a jetpack on. Well, she took rocket fuel and poured it on there and it kept going. So from that experience, from a coffee, going through that experience, to then learning how to live bravely, I invite Anita Anand to the stage to share her story.
Marami kaming selection from all makes and models, and all trade-ins are welcome. Bago ka ba sa bansa, wala ka pang credit score, walang problema. Garantisado ang financing, plus meron kaming certified warranty technicians for all your services and repairs. Matatagpuan sa 104 and 138 and at surreymitsubishi.com.
Thank you, Winston, for that very warm and heartfelt introduction. A few years ago, a coach friend of mine sent me a link to a TED Talk that completely changed the trajectory of my life. As I listened to Dr. Brené Brown's talks on vulnerability and shame, for the first time, I understood what this thing really was that had been the undercurrent of my entire life. This thing that had snuck into the driver's seat of my life and had me locked in the trunk, feeling trapped and helpless. Let me ask you this. How many of you wake up in some kind of scarcity each morning? Didn't get enough sleep, not thin enough, not smart enough, not promoted enough, not healthy enough, not lovable enough, not fill in the blanks enough. Well, that was my story for the first 40 plus years of my life. Being born in an authoritarian and patriarchal culture was probably not the ideal setting for my wildly free and independent spirit. And looking back, it was exactly the right setting for my life's work. I was the youngest of 3 and the only girl in the family. And so I grew up for the early years of my life feeling very, very scared and very, very alone. Everywhere I looked, there were messages of who, what, and how I should be, and who, what, and how I should not be. And so I learned very, very early in life that showing any kind of emotion was a sign of weakness, that asking to have my needs met was being self-indulgent, and that my imperfections were seen as inadequacies, something that I needed to work on diligently and correct. And so needless to say, I felt like I had no permission to fail or to make mistakes. And so from a very early age, I learned to hide my struggles in order to avoid the pain of shame, blame, criticism, and judgment. And I started to find comfort and safety in pretending and perfecting. But no matter how perfect I tried to be, I found I still could not control other people's perceptions of me. And I was continuously feeling disillusioned in myself, not feeling good enough, and certainly not feeling worthy of love and belonging. And so by the time I graduated from high school, one thing I had figured out was that good grades and any kind of academic, professional, or financial achievement would definitely raise my status in the eyes of those who really mattered, in the eyes of those who held the strings to my worthiness. And so even though I did understand that intellectually, it didn't change the fact that my heart was still looking for deeper connection. It was still looking to be loved and accepted just for who I was at my core, and not for what I did for other people or what I achieved. So this resulted in an early marriage, 2 beautiful children, and a growing sense of emptiness. To the outside world, my life couldn't have looked more perfect. But on the inside, I was slowly disintegrating. And so, in my married life, just as I had done in my childhood, I went into pleasing, pretending, perfecting, performing. And adding on academic achievements, convinced that a higher professional status would give me that sense of worthiness that I was craving for and I was longing for and hungry for. But sadly, that empty, hollow feeling inside of me was growing like weeds. That feeling of being in this world and yet being disconnected from it. And so after having tried every single trick that I knew, I came to the conclusion that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, and that if only I could learn how to be a better wife, a better mother, then things would change and life would be happier for me. Well, I didn't achieve those goals, but what I did achieve was unimaginable levels of self-hatred and self-loathing. The price for which I paid through mind, body, and spirit. What was worse was that by this time, I could see history repeating itself. And I saw my children growing up with an emotionally absent mom. Now, as an educator, that realization hit me like a lightning bolt. And I immediately knew that something needed to change if I was going to break that cycle. But because I was so convinced that I was the problem, that there was something wrong with me, as a last resort, I turned to self-help books, looking for answers, which then led me on my path to spirituality, my saving grace. It took me 15 years of being on that path to understand that I had been in a codependent, emotionally disempowering marriage for 28 years. And that I had lost the most important gift that we have as human beings, which is my voice. And I also realized that what had been running my entire life was the shame of not feeling good enough, of always worrying about what other people thought about me, and comparing myself to others constantly and coming up short over and over again. By this time, I had hit rock bottom. And so, thanks to my highly resilient spirit, I decided that rock bottom was going to be the solid foundation that I was going to build my future on. I've often described myself as a rubber duck. It's like you push me down here, I'll pop up here. You push me down here, I'll pop up here. Nothing's going to keep me down, and I'm not going to give up. So finally, I summoned the courage to leave my marriage. And simultaneously, I left a job that was also not in alignment with my values and started to rebuild myself one brick at a time. But the only difference was this time, I was reconstructing myself from my heart and not my head, from a place of self-love and not self-loathing. And finally, for the first time, I learned how to exhale. So I spent the next few years learning how to treat myself with love and compassion, giving myself permission to be imperfect and embrace the beauty of my cracks. And I started to consciously surround myself with people who loved me, not for what I did for them or for what I achieved, but for who I was at my core. So you can only imagine my joy when I was introduced to Dr. Brené Brown's work. And I discovered that through her research, she had given language to my journey from pain to purpose, from scarcity to feeling good enough. And most importantly, what I learned from her research was that love and belonging are fundamental, non-negotiable needs of all human beings. It is not something that we need to hustle for. We're born worthy of love and belonging. Not if, not when, now. Worthy now. Period. And so then that started me on the next chapter of my life and the desire to pay it forward by becoming a certified facilitator for her work. And so now, each time I facilitate a retreat, there is a part of me that heals from witnessing the process of people taking their lives back, of stepping into the arena and making brave and courageous choices, and choosing to live a more authentic life. It's become the most meaningful way for me to make sense of all the pain and struggle that I endured for over 40 years of my life. This work has really connected me to my purpose, which is to coach people to focus less on what other people think about you and more on how you feel being around them. To start treating yourself with more love and compassion. And to, first and foremost, start owning your truth and then be vulnerable enough to share it and speak it with others and ask for what you need. And most importantly, to love yourself over and above everyone else. I can hear my grandmother turning in her grave, listening to my words. No, but really, contrary to how many of us have been raised, loving yourself is not an act of selfishness. We can't give to others what we can't give to ourselves first. Now, if you want to be the best parent, the best partner, the best friend, the best leader, the best fill in the blanks in the myriad of hats that you wear every single day, it all has to start with being kinder and more loving to yourself first. As Brené says, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our sense of self-acceptance, which means having compassion for our imperfections, which means having the courage to step into the arena and try something new, even if it means falling, even if it means failing, even if it means getting disappointed or having our heart broken. Why? Because over time you have learned how to get up and try again, right? And so my invitation to all of you in here and all of you out there is to start showing up for yourself and for your dreams every single day. And start leaning into others for support. Perfectionism and being very, very self-creative and relying just on yourself are not the feathers that you want in your cap. And most of all, give permission to those around you to get close to your beautiful, true, imperfect self. Because that's when the magic happens, when we can move from our heads to our hearts. It's the shortest distance in our bodies and the longest journey that we will probably ever take in our lives. Thank you for sharing my time.
Thank you. Anita Anand, everyone.
Models are on display at Freeway Mazda. New Mazda sedans, crossovers, and SUVs surround the facility, and fully loaded versions occupy the floor of the showroom. At Freeway Mazda, 154th Street and 104 Avenue in Surrey. Foodie World presents Philippine Street, featuring a large selection of Filipino foods, from imported non-perishable products to both packaged seafood and locally caught and very much alive. Foodie World is 75,000 square feet of worldly groceries situated in North Richmond.